So let me ask you something right away. You're walking down a street you've walked 100 times before, wearing what looks like a completely normal pair of Ray-Ban glasses. Music is quietly playing, your phone stays in your pocket, your hands are free. And suddenly, without touching anything, your glasses can remember where they were last connected. Start recording a sped-up walk through the city, or quietly prepare a clip that's already ready to share. That's the moment this update changes the story. And if that sounds subtle, stick with me, because subtle is exactly why this matters. What makes this update interesting isn't one flashy headline feature. It's how a bunch of small, confirmed changes start to connect in ways you feel during real life, not in a spec sheet. And the best way to understand that is to slow down and walk through what actually happens when you wear these glasses day after day. Let's start with the thing you notice before any update even kicks in. Comfort. These are still Ray-Ban frames. First, they sit on your face like glasses you'd wear anyway, not like a gadget trying to remind you it's smart. The weight stays balanced across the frame. After a few minutes, they don't feel like tech anymore, and that's important because every feature we're about to talk about only works if you forget they're there. And here's the twist. The update doesn't change the physical design at all, but it changes how often you use them. And that's where the story starts. Think about daily habits. You put your glasses on when you leave the house. You take them off when you get home. That motion alone already triggers behavior. The glasses detect when they're worn and when they're removed, which quietly helps manage audio and battery without you thinking about it. And now with the latest update, that background awareness extends further than before. For example, the Find Device feature doesn't magically track your glasses around the world, but it does something very real and very practical. It remembers the last place your glasses connected to the Meta AI app. That sounds simple, almost boring, until the day you actually need it. Picture this. You at a cafe. You take your glasses off for a second, set them down in hours. Later you realize they're gone. Instead of panic, you open the app and see where they last connected. That doesn't guarantee recovery, but it narrows the search from anywhere to right there. That's the kind of update you don't celebrate until the exact moment it saves you. And that's the theme of this entire firmware update. Quiet features that wait for real life to catch up. Now let's talk about the camera, but not in the way people usually do. Everyone asks about resolution, but the real question is behavior. How often do you actually record something when your hands are busy? This update introduces hyperapse recording, and on paper it sounds straightforward. In real life, it changes when you choose to capture. You can start a hyperlapse hands-free, just by speaking, no phone. No stopping to frame the shot. You keep moving while time compresses into a smooth, sped-up clip. But here's the suspenseful part. How does that actually feel while you're wearing them? When you walk through a park, a city street, or across a bridge, your head naturally moves. You look left, right, up, down. The hyperlapse doesn't pause for perfect framing. It captures motion as you experience it. And that means you start to become more aware of how you move. Not because the glasses force you to, but because you know the story of that movement will play back later in seconds instead of minutes. It quietly changes how you explore. And wait, because hyperlapse doesn't stand alone. The update also introduces new hands-free slow-motion recording. This is limited, controlled, and realistic. It records up to a minute, and it does exactly what slow motion is supposed to do: stretch small moments. Think splash in water, quick movements, or a fast gesture during an activity. You don't dig through menus. You don't tap your phone. You speak and it starts. And that simplicity matters more than the effect itself. But here's where it gets interesting. Stabilization now becomes adjustable. Before this update, stabilization exists automatically. Now, you can control it. That means the glasses don't decide everything for you anymore. More stabilization smooths motion but often crops the image slightly. Less stabilization keeps a wider view but shows more movement. This isn't flashy, it's honest. It lets you choose what matters more in that moment, smoothness or perspective. And that choice makes you feel more like a creator than a passive user. Now think about how all of this connects. You're wearing the glasses, you capture something hands-free. It stabilizes based on your preference. It compresses time or stretches it depending on your command. And then comes the part most people forget to talk about. What happens after the moment passes? This update changes sharing behavior in a very specific way. You can now share your most recent video directly to Instagram or Facebook stories using your voice, no prep required beforehand. No, I should have told it first. You capture first, decide later. That sounds small, but it changes the pressure of recording. You don't have to know the future to document the present. And if you've ever missed a moment because you weren't ready to post yet, you already understand why this matters. But hold on, because recording and sharing is only half the story. These glasses are also listening. And not in a creepy way, in a useful one. Music playback now responds to more languages across regions, letting more people control audio naturally. You don't memorize commands, you speak like a human. And when sound plays through the open-ear speakers, it doesn't block the world. It sits near your ears like a whisper, not a wall. You hear your surroundings and your music at the same time, which makes daily use feel safe and natural. And then there's the moment where the glasses don't just respond to you. They respond to what you're looking at. When paired with Spotify, you can ask for music based on your view. This doesn't guess your mood. It simply uses what the camera sees to suggest sound, album covers, scenes, everyday visuals. It's subtle, it's optional. And when it works, it feels less like AI and more like a companion making a suggestion instead of a decision. Now pause for a second, because the next layer adds movement. Fitness tracking integrations connect these glasses to services like Garmin, Strava, Apple Health, and Google Health Connect. That connection allows workout stats to appear alongside captured clips. You don't manually edit them in. The stats exist because the data exists. Distance, pace, activity moments attached naturally to what you record. And that's where this update quietly shifts the identity of the glasses. They're not just documenting life. They're documenting effort. And just when you think that's the full picture, there's one more layer waiting, but I want you to really feel how all of this stacks together first. Because once we start talking about voice control, continuous context, and what happens when you stop needing to say, "Hey Meta," at all, that's where this update stops being about features and starts being about flow. So don't go anywhere. In the next section, we're going deeper into how voice interaction changes, how AI behavior stays grounded in real limits, and why some features are intentionally restricted to specific models. And trust me, you'll want to understand why. Those limits matter just as much as the upgrades themselves. Alright, let's keep moving, because this is where the update starts to feel less like a list of features and more like a shift in how these glasses fit into your day. Up to now, everything we've talked about still assumes you're actively telling the glasses what to do. You speak a command, something happens, and then it stops. That's familiar. That's safe. But the next layer of this update quietly changes how continuous the interaction can feel, and it does it without pretending to be smarter than it really is. Let's talk about meta AI behavior, but in a grounded way. This update does not turn the glasses into a magic assistant that understands everything. Instead, it makes the assistant more present. When you activate Live AI, the glasses stay engaged for a short stretch of time, responding without needing to be summoned again and again. And that sounds small until you try it in motion. Imagine you're walking through a city you don't know well. You're not asking big philosophical questions. You're asking practical things. What is this? Building? Pause. How far is the next street? Pause. Read this sign. Normally, you'd have to restart the interaction every single time. With Love AI, that friction drops. The conversation flows just enough to feel natural, but not enough to feel intrusive. And that balance is important, because anything more would be distracting. Anything less would feel pointless. What's interesting here is what the glasses don't do. They don't interrupt you. They don't talk unless spoken. 2. They don't invent information. They respond, then wait. And when the interaction ends, you can later see a record of that conversation in the app. Not because you need it, but because sometimes you forget what you asked while you were moving. That quiet memory becomes useful after the moment passes. Now, let's slow things down and talk about audio again, because this update indirectly highlights how central sound is to the entire experience. These glasses don't use bone conduction. Instead, they use small open-ear speakers that aim sound toward your ears. The result isn't privacy like headphones, it's awareness. You hear music, calls, or AI responses, but you still hear cars, people, and your environment. And that design choice becomes more important as voice features expand. Phone calls are a perfect example. The microphones on these glasses pick up your voice clearly, even outdoors. Wind noise exists because reality exists, but voices remain intelligible. And here's the part that surprises people. The person on the other end often doesn't realize you're outside. That's not because the glasses remove noise entirely, but because they prioritize your voice. And when you experience that for the first time, it changes how often you answer calls without pulling out your phone. Now combine that with WhatsApp video calls. This update doesn't invent video calling, it enables a different perspective. When you switch to the glasses camera during a WhatsApp call, the person you're talking to sees what you see. Not a selfie, not a shaky handheld phone view. Your actual point of view. And the first time you use it, something clicks. You stop narrating. You just show. But wait, because this is also where privacy enters the conversation again. The recording indicator light remains active. You cannot secretly record without visible signals. The glasses are very clear about when the camera is in use, and while that sometimes leads to awkward questions, are you recording me right now? It also builds trust. People know when they're on camera. There's no ambiguity. And that design choice carries through every update, including this one. Let's shift back to fitness for a moment, because this update deepens that connection, but only where supported. When paired with compatible Garmin devices or connected services, Meta AI can pull real workout data, not guesses, not estimates, actual recorded stats. You can ask about your last run, your pace, your distance, and the glasses respond using confirmed data already logged elsewhere. That matters because it keeps the glasses honest. They don't pretend to track what they can't. And here's the interesting twist: auto capture during workouts. When enabled, the glasses automatically record short clips based on workout milestones. You don't press a button. You don't think about it. The clip happens because something meaningful happened in the workout. And later, when you review those clips with stats attached, you don't just see movement, you see context. Time, effort, result. That's a very different kind of memory. Now, before we go further, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked: control frustration. Touch controls on the glasses still exist, and they still require learning. Sliding adjusts volume. Tapping pauses playback. But without tactile feedback, mistakes happen. And this update doesn't magically solve that. Sometimes you still tap the wrong spot, sometimes you fumble. And that's okay, because the glasses offer another option: voice shortcuts now. This is where it gets specific. These shortcuts exist on certain Oakley Meta models, not the Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2. That matters. It means not every update applies to every frame. And instead of hiding that, Meta makes it clear. Voice shortcuts allow certain commands to be triggered without saying, "Hey Meta," particularly during active workouts when speaking full phrases isn't convenient. It's fast, it's direct, and it's limited on purpose. And limitations keep popping up for a reason. Translation, for example, works in a defined set of languages. When enabled, the glasses translate spoken language into your own, played back through the speakers. There's a delay, there's no pretending otherwise. And that delay can feel strange if you understand some of the language already. But in moments where you understand none of it, the delay becomes acceptable, because understanding arrives at all. You can also respond, and your translated text appears on your phone for the other person to read. It's not a seamless conversation, but it's a bridge. And sometimes a bridge is all you need. Now here's a question for you. With all these features layered together: camera, audio, AI, fitness, sharing, what happens when you stop thinking about the glasses as tech and start thinking of them as routine? That's where battery life, charging, and longevity suddenly matter more than any feature. The case still plays a major role. It holds multiple charges and recharges the glasses when docked. The contacts align at the bridge. The indicator lights tell you what's happening without opening an app. It's simple, but it's not small. The case takes up space. You notice it in a pocket. And if you leave it behind, you feel it later when battery drops faster than expected. There's also the reality no update can avoid. Batteries degrade. They're not replaceable. And over time, usage shortens lifespan. This update doesn't fix that, but it doesn't ignore it either. There's now clearer control over powering the glasses fully off using the internal switch. That matters if you wear them for long stretches without using smart features. Saving power becomes a conscious choice instead of an accident. And this is where I want you to pause. Because everything so far builds toward a bigger question, not about what the glasses can do, but about who they're actually for. Creators, walkers, travelers, runners, people who want to capture moments without breaking them. And people who don single quotes T. In the next section, we're going to bring all of this together: daily wear, long-term ownership, firmware updates over time, and the honest pros and cons that don't show up in launch videos. And that's where you'll really decide whether this update changes everything, or just changes enough. So stay with me, because the last stretch isn't about features, it's about reality after the novelty fades. Alright, now this is where things get quietly interesting. Because once the excitement of new features settles, you're left with something much more revealing: how these glasses behave when they stop being new and start being normal. Think about the last piece of tech you bought. The first week, you probably explored every setting. The second week, you used your favorite features. By the third month, only the things that actually fit into your life survived. And that's exactly where this update starts to show its real impact. Not in DMOS, but in repetition. You put the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses on in the morning, and nothing dramatic happens. And that's important. They don't announce themselves. They don't light up aggressively. They don't demand attention. They just sit there like a normal pair of glasses. The weight hasn't changed. The balance on your face hasn't changed. After a few minutes, you stop thinking about them. And the moment you stop thinking about a piece of tech is usually the moment it succeeds. But then something interrupts your routine. A message comes in, music starts playing, a call arrives. And instead of reaching into your pocket, you hear it like someone whispering a reminder into your ear. That open-ear audio design suddenly feels less like a feature and more like a habit. You don't isolate yourself. You don't block the world out. You stay present. Now, here's the suspenseful part. How much do you trust that presence? Let's say you're walking down a busy street. Cars are passing. People are talking. Wind is moving past your face. You answer a call using the glasses. On your end, everything sounds busy. But the person on the other end hears you clearly. That imbalance feels strange the first time. You assume they're struggling to hear you. Then they respond without hesitation. That's when you realize the microphones are doing more work than you expected. Not perfectly, not magically, but reliably. And that reliability matters when you start using the glasses without planning to. This update strengthens that sense of spontaneity. Sharing a video to Instagram or Facebook stories no longer has to be decided in advance. You capture a moment first, then decide what to do with it later. A quick command, share last video, and it's done. The limitation is clear. Clips must be short. But the freedom is real. You don't stop living to post. You post after living. But here's the twist. That freedom also reveals friction. Posting directly sounds convenient, until you remember how people actually use social media: captions, music, stickers, edits. The glasses don't replace that. They shortcut the capture, not the creativity. And that's a good thing, because it means they don't pretend to replace your phone. They support it. That philosophy shows up again when you look at how footage transfers. There's no cable. There's no dragging files. The content moves wirelessly through the Meta AI app and lands in your phone's photo library, automatically, quietly, sometimes so quietly that you forget it's happening. Until storage fills and older content overwrites itself, exactly as designed. The glasses are not an archive. They're a camera that hands memories off and moves on. Now let's talk about control again, but from a different angle. Touch controls still exist. They still lack physical feedback. And that means sometimes you miss. Sometimes you tap, and nothing happens. Sometimes you pause when you meant to adjust volume. This update doesn't pretend that's solved. Instead, it nudges you toward voice, especially when your hands are busy or your attention is elsewhere. That's where Leave AI starts pulling more weight. Not because it's smarter, but because it stays with you just long enough to feel cooperative. You ask one question, then another, then another. You don't reset the conversation each time, and when it ends, it ends. There's no lingering chatter, no background voice. Silence returns, and silence is a theme here. When the glasses aren't actively doing something, they fade into the background. Even music playback feels different compared to earbuds or headphones. If traffic noise increases, the music doesn't fight it. It blends behind it. Sometimes that means you miss a lyric. Sometimes it means you stay safer crossing a street. And that trade-off becomes personal over time. Now, let's shift back to the camera. Because this update adds more creative control but also more decisions. Adjustable stabilization sounds technical, but the idea is simple. More stabilization usually means more cropping. Less stabilization usually means more motion. With this update, you can choose. And the first time you change that setting, you start paying attention to how much your head actually moves when you walk. It's humbling. You realize how much your brain smooths reality before your eyes ever see it. The glasses don't do that automatically. They need guidance. And once you give them that guidance, the footage feels closer to what you remember experiencing. Not perfect, but familiar. Now let's bring fitness back into the picture, because this update leans harder into performance tracking only where external data supports it. When connected to Garmin, Strava, Apple Health, or Google Health Connect, the glasses don't guess how you performed. They reference recorded workouts. You can ask about distance, pace, timing, and the answers are grounded in data collected. Elsewhere, what's more interesting is what happens after the workout. Auto capture clips paired with stats transform plain footage into context-rich moments. You're not just seeing yourself move, you're seeing why that moment mattered. And when you share it, others see the effort behind it. But here's the quiet limitation again. You need the ecosystem. Without a compatible device or account, those features simply don't activate. The glasses don't fake it. They wait. And that honesty builds trust, even if it means fewer people use the feature. Now, just when you think you've seen everything, there's a feature that feels almost playful: music recommendations based on what you see. Through Spotify, in English. Limited, controlled. You look at something, ask for a song to match the view, and the glasses respond with a suggestion. Sometimes it fits. Sometimes it doesn't, and that unpredictability is part of the charm but also the constraint. It's not mind reading. It's interpretation, and that's a good moment to pause and ask yourself, do you want glasses that try to anticipate you or glasses that respond when asked? Because this update very clearly chooses the second option. As we move into the final stretch, there's one last layer to talk about: long-term ownership, wear, tear, battery, charging habits. The moments when you don't bring the case. The days you forget to turn them off. The weeks where you use them constantly, and the weeks where they just sit there waiting. That's where the final judgment lives. And that's exactly where we're going next. Because the last part isn't about what changed in the update, it's about what stayed the same, and why that matters more than any new feature. So now we're at the point that almost no launch video ever talks about. Not the update notes, not the feature lists, not the exciting demos. This is the moment months later, when the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses stop feeling like a gadget and start revealing whether they actually deserve a place in your daily life. And the first thing you notice is the charging routine. Or more accurately, how rarely you think about it until you have to. You don't charge these every night like a phone. You don't baby them either. You drop them into the case when you remember, sometimes once a day, sometimes every couple of days depending on how heavily you use audio and camera. The case quietly does its job. No flashy screens. No battery anxiety alerts yelling at you. Just a simple habit forming in the background. But here's the suspenseful question. What happens on the day you forget the case? That's when reality kicks in. These are not all day, always on glasses. Heavy camera use drains them faster. Long calls take a noticeable bite. Extended music sessions remind you that open-ear audio still uses power. And the update doesn't magically change that. Instead, it makes usage more intentional. You start saving features for moments that matter. You don't record everything, you record the right things. That shift alone changes how the glasses feel. They stop being passive and start feeling deliberate. Now let's talk about durability, because wearables live hard lives. They get tossed on tables, thrown into bags, worn in heat, wind, and light rain. The Ray-Ban build shows its value here. Hinges stay firm. Frames don't creak. Lenses scratch like any normal sunglasses or prescription lenses would know better, no worse. And that normalcy is reassuring. They age like glasses, not gadgets. And here's where something subtle happens. People stop asking about them. In the beginning, Everyone notices. They ask questions. They assume cameras are recording. You explain. Over time, that fades. Because they don't look like tech anymore. And when a smart device stops attracting attention, it finally starts serving its owner instead of entertaining an audience. But let's not avoid the uncomfortable part, privacy. This update doesn't change the fundamentals. The camera light still activates when recording. Voice activation still waits for a clear prompt. You still control when something happens. And yet, you become more aware of your surroundings, not less. You think before recording. You read the room. And that awareness actually improves how you use the device. It doesn't turn you into a constant recorder. It turns you into a selective one. Now think back to AI again, not as a headline feature, but as a background tool. The Live AI doesn't dominate your day. It steps in when needed. You ask about what you're seeing, you follow up, you stop. It doesn't argue. It doesn't push suggestions. It waits, and that restraint makes it usable. Especially for older users who don't want constant prompts, and younger users who just want quick answers without digging through menus. But here's the part nobody expects. The glasses teach you patience. Not because they're slow, but because they respond at human speed. There's a pause. A beat. A moment where you're still looking at the world instead of a screen. And that pause changes how you consume information. You're not scrolling, you're asking, you're listening. Then you move on. Now let's address comparisons carefully. And honestly, compared to traditional earbuds, the audio isn't as immersive. Compared to action cameras, the footage isn't as dramatic. Compared to phones, the camera isn't as flexible. And that's the point. These glasses don't replace anything. They connect things. They sit in the space between convenience and presence. And once you accept that, frustration turns into clarity. You stop expecting cinematic videos. You start appreciating first-person memories. You stop expecting private audio. You start valuing awareness. You stop expecting constant AI help. You start using it like a tool instead of a crutch. Now here's the real twist: the update doesn't make these glasses feel revolutionary. It makes them feel settled. And that's a strange compliment, but an important one. The software feels more confident. The features feel more defined. The limitations feel intentional instead of accidental. Nothing is trying to impress you anymore. Everything is trying to work. So when someone asks, did this update change everything? The honest answer is no and yes. No, it didn't turn the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses into something completely different. They're still smart glasses with a camera, open-ear audio, phone connectivity, and AI assistance. All verified, all present, all grounded. But yes, it changed how you relate to them. They stop being a tech experiment and start being a choice. A choice to capture without distraction. To listen without isolation. To ask without staring at a screen. And once that mindset clicks, going back feels harder than expected. And that's the moment you realize something important. Meta didn't just update features. They refined behavior. So if you've watched this far, here's the final question to leave you with. Are you looking for the smartest glasses on paper or the glasses that quietly fit into your real life? Because once you live with these long enough, that difference starts to matter more than specs ever could. And that's the part nobody talks about, but now you know.